standing for Jesus, standing in the gap for family and friends, standing in the gap, one love for all, so we all can make it in. Standing in the gap, standing for Jesus, standing in the gap for family and friends, standing in the gap, one love for all, so we all can make it in. Studying to show ourselves approved, rightly dividing the word of truth, increasing our faith to envision our freedom, so we all can glorify our God.
This ministry is to keep you up on the current events, and the reason for that is because of the Great Commission. Jesus left and said, spread the gospel to all the ends of the world, and in order to do that, he wants you to spread it in your life now, the times that we're living now, because we can always look back 2,000 years and say, okay, well, that's what was happening there and all that, but it's happening now, and the world needs the gospel. And to understand that, you have to know what the current events are. So we dedicate a portion of our ministry to what we call the Gap News, and Marvel's in charge of that, and she picks items from the current events to emphasize as we go on. I always say that she has so much to work with, and it's hard sometimes for me to say, okay, what are we going to teach this week? But with her picking out Gap News, she has to worry about how does she narrow it down to something that can be used. So I give you Marvel and I give you Gap News.
Okay, I'm back, y'all. And I say this every once in a while. There is so much going on. Sometimes it's really hard to call out what should we cover, because my intention is to give you information that you need. Maybe you heard about it, maybe you didn't, but I'm going to go in depth about it. And, President Volodymyr Zelenskyy from Ukraine came to the United States this week with the intention of writing a deal and getting some security and assurances. And what happened is he got ambushed.
For 4 years in the United States of America, we had a president who stood up at press conferences and talked tough about Vladimir Putin, and then Putin invaded Ukraine and destroyed a significant chunk of the country. The path to peace and the path to prosperity is maybe engaging in diplomacy. We tried the pathway of Joe Biden of thumping our chest and pretending that the President of the United States' words mattered more than the President of the United States' actions. What makes America a good country is America engaging in diplomacy. That's what President Trump is doing.
Can I ask you?
Sure.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. So he occupied our parts, big parts of Ukraine, part of East and Crimea. So he occupied it on 2014. So during a lot of years, so I'm not speaking about just Biden, but those time was Obama, then President Obama, then President Trump, then President Biden, now President Trump, and God bless, now President Trump will stop him. But during 2014, nobody stopped him. He just occupied and took. He killed people. You know what the contact line?
2015.
2014
2014.
and 2014.
2014.
Yeah. So
I was not here.
Yeah, but
that's exactly right.
Yes, but during 2014 till 2022, the situation the same. The people have been dying on the contact line. Nobody stopped him. You know that we had conversations with him, a lot of conversation, my bilateral conversation, and we signed with him, me, like a new president. In 2019, I signed with him the deal. I signed with him, Macron and Merkel, we signed ceasefire. ceasefire. All of them told me that he will never go. We signed him with gas contract. Yes, but after that, he broken this ceasefire. He killed our people and he didn't exchange prisoners. We signed the exchange of prisoners, but he didn't do it. What kind of diplomacy, JD, you are speaking about? What do you mean?
I'm talking about the kind of diplomacy that's going to end the destruction of your country.
Yes, but if you
Mr.
are not
President,
strong-
Mr. President, with respect, I think it's disrespectful for you to come into the Oval Office and try to litigate this in front of the American media. Right now, you guys are going around and forcing conscripts to the front lines because you have manpower problems. You should be thanking the President for trying to bring an end to this conflict.
Have you ever been to Ukraine that you say what problems we have?
I have been to.
And come once.
I've actually watched and seen the stories, and I know what happens is you bring them on a propaganda tour, Mr. President. Do you disagree that you've had problems bringing people into your military?
We have problems.
And do you think that it's respectful to come to the Oval Office of the United States of America and attack the administration that is trying to prevent the destruction of your country?
A lot of questions. Let's start from the beginning.
Sure.
First of all, during the war, everybody has problems. Even you, but you have nice ocean and don't feel now, but you will feel it in the future. God bless.
You don't know that.
God bless.
You don't
God
know
bless.
that.
You will not have a war.
Don't tell us what we're going to feel. We're trying to solve a problem. Don't tell us what we're going to feel.
I'm not telling you.
Because
I'm
you're in no
answering on this
position to
question.
dictate that.
That's exactly
Remember
what
this.
you're doing.
I'm not
You're in
dictating.
no position to dictate what we're going to feel.
You
We're going to feel very
you will
good.
Feel influence.
We're going to feel very
I'm
good and
telling
very
you,
strong.
You will feel influence.
You're right now not in a very good position. You've allowed
From the
yourself
very-
to be in a
from
very
the very
bad position,
beginning
and he
of the
happens
war.
to be right about
From the
it.
very beginning of the war.
You're not in a
Mr.
good
Brown,
position.
I
You don't
was
have the
saying-
cards right now. With us, you start having
not playing
cards.
cards.
Right now, you
I'm
don't.
very
Yeah, you're playing
serious,
cards.
Mr. President.
You're
I'm
playing
very
cards.
serious.
You're
I'm
gambling
the
with the
president
lives
in
of
war.
millions of people.
You think-
You're gambling with World War
What do you-
III.
what do you
You're
think about?
gambling with
What do you
World
think
War
about?
III. And
You-
what you're doing is very disrespectful to the country, this country.
I'm
That's
with
back
all
to
respect to
you.
your
Far
country.
more than a lot of people said
very
they
respect.
should have.
Have you said thank you once? This
A lot
entire
of
meeting?
times.
No, in this
Even
entire meeting,
today.
have you said thank
Even
you?
today.
You went to Pennsylvania and campaigned for the opposition in October. Offer some words of appreciation for the United States
what
of
are you speaking
America
about?
and the president who's trying to save your country.
Please, you think that if you will speak very loudly about the war, you
He's
can...
not speaking loudly. He's not
Yeah.
speaking loudly. Your country is
Can I-
in big
can-
trouble.
can I
Wait a
answer?
minute. No,
Can
you've
I
done a lot
answer?
of talking. Your country is in big trouble.
I know.
You're not
I
winning.
know.
You're not winning this. You have a damn
We-
good chance of
we are
coming out
staying,
okay because of
Mr.
us.
President, we are staying in our country, staying strong from the very beginning of the war. We've been alone, and we are thankful. I said thanks
You haven't
in
been
this
alone.
cabinet,
You
and
haven't
not
been
only
alone.
in this
We
cabinet.
gave you, through
I
this
said thank
stupid
you.
president, $350 billion.
You voted
We gave
for
you
your
military
president.
equipment,
You
and you
voted
men
for
are
your
brave, but they had to
president.
use our military.
What about
If-
West
If
Indies?
you didn't have
You
our
invited
military
me-
equipment,
you invited
if
me
you
to
didn't
speak.
have our military equipment, this war would have been over in 2 weeks.
In 3
okay?
days, I heard it from Putin. In 3 days, this is something
Maybe
new.
less.
In 2 weeks, of course, yes.
It's going to be a very hard thing to do business like this. I
Again,
tell you.
just say thank you.
I said a lot of
Except
times
that there,
thank you
except
to
that-
American people.
Except that there are disagreements, and let's go litigate those disagreements rather than trying to fight it out in the American media when you're wrong. We know that you're wrong.
But you see, I think it's good for the American people to see what's going on.
I understand, sir.
I think it's
I
very
understand.
important. That's why I kept this going so long. You have to be thankful. You don't have the
I'm
cards.
thankful.
You're buried there. Your people are dying.
tell you
You're
again,
running
I
low
know.
on soldiers.
Don't-
Listen,
don't please,
you're running
Mr.
low on
President.
soldiers. It would be a damn good thing.
Mr.
And then
President.
then you tell us, I don't want a ceasefire. I don't want a ceasefire. I want to go and I want this. Look, if you could get a ceasefire right now, I tell you, you take it so the bullets stop flying and your men stop getting killed.
Of course, we want to stop the war.
But you're
I
saying
said-
you don't want a ceasefire.
But I said to you,
I want a ceasefire.
with guarantees.
Because you'll get a ceasefire faster than an agreement.
Ask our people about ceasefire, what they think.
That wasn't
doesn't
with
matter
me.
for you what-
That
what
wasn't
this
with me.
means. It
That was
wasn't
with
with you.
a guy named Biden who was not a smart person.
But this
That
is
was
your,
with,
this
that was
is
with
your
Obama.
president. It was your president.
Excuse me. That was with Obama, who gave you sheets, and I gave you javelins.
Yes.
I gave you the javelins to take out all those tanks. Obama gave you sheets. In fact, the statement is Obama gave sheets and Trump gave javelins. You got to be more thankful, because let me tell you, you don't have the cards. With us, you have the cards. But without us, you don't have any cards.
One more question to the Vice President. I'm sorry.
It's going to be a tough deal to make, because the attitudes have to change.
What if Russia breaks ceasefire? What if Russia breaks peace talks? What do you do then? I understand that it's a heated conversation right now.
What are you saying?
She's asking, what if Russia breaks the ceasefire?
What if anything? What if a bomb drops on your head right now? Okay?
This is part of how Senator Cory Booker responded today after the debacle at the White House. Quote, Donald Trump and J.D. Vance didn't show strength today. They showed weakness. They belittled a giant and showed just how small they are. A weary warrior was before them, a beleaguered man who has lost thousands of his friends and comrades to the unjust and illegal aggression of an authoritarian leader. They showed no grace, no magnanimity of spirit, no diplomatic acumen. They were small bullies with big titles, and they disrespected the history and legacy of the nation they lead. Today, Donald Trump acted more like Today, Donald Trump acted more like Russia's Putin than America's president. Joining us now is Senator Cory Booker, Democrat of New Jersey. He's a member of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. Senator Booker, I'm really glad you could be here tonight. Thanks for making time.
Thanks for having me on a really awful day for our nation. Frankly, it's an awful day for Ukraine and our nation. The one nation that really is celebrating right now is Vladimir Putin in Russia.
What concerns you the most about that? What, for Americans who don't necessarily think about foreign policy that much, who don't think about America's role in the world, or if they do, don't think it affects their regular lives very much, what concerns you the most about us apparently abandoning our global stance of the entire modern history of our country and instead lining up with Russia and turning against our democratic allies?
I had a European leader in my office who came and asked to come meet with me privately to express his distress over Ukraine, who told me about what does it say about our world that for the first time to his knowledge we've ever seen in a UN resolution around the Security Council, America side with China and Russia in condemning what Putin did and not their European democratic allies.
You're not acting grateful enough. You're not being thankful. Donald Trump, to the leader of Ukraine. Joining our ongoing coverage, former United States Ambassador to the United Nations, former National Security Advisor to President Obama, Ambassador Susan Rice is here. Ambassador, your reaction.
Well, Nicole, obviously it's a very sad day and an embarrassment for the United States on the world stage. But let's step back and analyze what's happened here. I think there's no question that this was a setup. You heard Donald Trump say at the end of that clip you played, this is great television. This was a setup. Volodymyr Zelenskyy was compelled to agree to a horrible deal that would have sent Ukraine's minerals to the United States without any concrete security guarantees. And yet, because he was trying to improve a relationship with Donald Trump, he came to Washington, he came to the Oval Office and sat down for a meeting, hat in hand. And soon after he got there, the Vice President of the United States lit into him and started a confrontation. Now, I've been in countless Oval Office meetings with heads of state, presidents and vice presidents, as National Security Advisor, as UN Ambassador, and in other roles. I can tell you that the Vice President or the Secretary of State or anybody else, they don't jump in, hijack a conversation without the express blessing of the President of the United States. So J.D. Vance did that deliberately. Donald Trump knew what he was going to do. And I think, as he said at the end, because he can't, help himself, this was a setup for the cameras. It was a play to his base, but above all, it was a play to Vladimir Putin, to show fealty to Vladimir Putin, and to try to humiliate Zelensky. But Zelensky didn't play along with the script because Zelensky's got dignity and guts, and Zelensky has people that he democratically represents. And as a result, he couldn't sit there in silence as lies were being told about how the war was started, whose responsibility it was, et cetera, et cetera. And he tried to explain what is in fact the case. To suggest that he was not thankful, I can't count the number of times that Zelensky has thanked the American people, the American government, the President of the United States for the critical support that we've provided. It's not about gratitude. It was an effort to humiliate him, to scuttle the U.S.-Ukraine relationship so that Trump no longer feels any obligation to provide support, and to hand U.S. interests and Ukraine and potentially Europe to Putin on a silver platter.
I mean, this is not good for both sides anyway, and I'm very open, but I can't, change our Ukrainian attitude to Russia. And I don't want they kill us for us. This is very, very clear that Americans are the best of our friends, Europeans are the best of our friends, and Putin with Russian, their enemies. And it doesn't mean that we don't want peace. We just want to recognize the reality.
Jonathan, what did you think when you were watching this unfold in the White House? And what do you make of the way Zelensky's talking about it now?
I thought the low point for America on the world stage was the Trump-Putin press conference in Helsinki in 2017, when the President of the United States sided with the President of Russia against his own national intelligence apparatus. What we saw in the Oval Office was travesty, horrendous, despicable. There aren't any words to describe what we watched, where we saw a vice president who's never been to Ukraine lecture a wartime president who was clearly summoned to the White House to humiliate him on the world stage, either on behalf of or for the benefit of Vladimir Putin in Russia. And look, I give President Zelensky major points for standing up for himself, for standing up for his nation, and standing up for his people. He is in there fighting for America's backing, which, I'm sorry, it should not even be in doubt, given the stakes that are involved and who he is trying to protect his people from.
David, from that Helsinki meeting in 2018 to this meeting today, what do you make of it?
I'll stick with today. I have enough to say about today. I was nauseated. I just nauseated. All my life I've had a certain idea about America, that we're a flawed country, but we're fundamentally a force for good in the world. That we defeated Soviet Union, we defeated fascism, we did the Marshall Plan, we did PEPFAR to help people live in Africa, and we make mistakes, Iraq, Vietnam, but they're usually mistakes out of stupidity, naivete, and arrogance. They're not because we're ill-intentioned. What I've seen over the last 6 weeks is the United States behaving vilely to our friends in Canada and Mexico, vilely to our friends in Europe, and today was the bottom of the barrel. Vilely to a man who was defending Western values at great personal risk to him and his countrymen. Donald Trump believes in one thing. He believes that might makes right. And in that, he agrees with Vladimir Putin, that they are birds of a feather. And he and Vladimir Putin together are trying to create a world that's safe for gangsters, where ruthless people can thrive. And we saw the product of that effort today in the Oval Office. And at first I was thinking, am I feeling grief? Am I feeling shock, like I'm in a hallucination? But I just think shame, moral shame. It's a moral injury to see the country you love behaving this way.
You heard Congressman Lawler, who would not criticize the president necessarily, but is a Ukraine supporter, say we're further away from a deal. They have to get back to a deal. The war has to end. You also heard Nick Schifrin report earlier, his European sources are saying there's a fundamental transatlantic break now. Is this the realignment, Jonathan? Has this happened? The U.S. is now closer to Russia than to its European allies?
Undisputed. Yes. And the fact that the Europeans are already looking at it as a break, I think they have to do that. They can't depend on the United States now. After what happened to President Zelensky in the Oval Office, what happens to the Baltic states? What happens to Estonia? if Russia rolls over the border? What happens to Poland if Russia rolls over the border? What happens if any of the NATO countries are attacked by Russia after what we just saw? They cannot depend on the United States anymore after more than 7 decades. I'm sure the Europeans are probably even more in shock than we are at this table. And I'm glad you used the word gangster, because that was the thing when President Trump got into it with President Zelensky. You don't have any cards. Without us, you have no deal. That was gangster rule there. And between him and the vice president, it also felt like watching a wrestling match where Vance jumps in the ring and then taps in the president, and then they gang up on a man who is literally fighting for the survival of his country.
David.
Whew. People have been really aghast at what happened in the Oval Office, this hallowed ground of our White House, that two wannabe gangsters came in and jumped on. I like what Jonathan said. It was like a tag team, I'm going to do it, then I'm going to tag you in, and you can do it, then tag you in, and you can do it. And all President Zelenskyy wants is to get some security assurance. Because if he signs a ceasefire and Putin reneges, which he has done every time, he needs somebody that's going to say, we will back you. And that's not what Trump wants. What Trump wants is to take all of their valuable minerals and resources and give them nothing in return. And give Putin everything he wants. What do you think, honey?
Well, I think you're right. I think it was a setup, and it was thoroughly disgusting. It's not, like the guy said, it's nauseating to see how, and it's not like those type of arguments and disagreements don't happen between countries, but they don't happen in front of the media. You can argue when you're in secret in your negotiations and all that. But you cannot point to another time when you step out of those meetings and there isn't some type form of everything is going good, we made some progress, and we're gonna kick it down the road and see what happens and all that. That'd been much better than what happened in the White House. The and the people who are siding with Trump, who are saying that he shows strength for America and all that, are just deluded. I mean, when it comes down to the fact that America thinks they can force another country to give up their vital resources and get nothing in return,
and their land.
And I'm talking about this agreement about the resources.
Okay.
I mean, there's no way that Zelenskyy could. I mean, if he's the type of leader that we know he is, come over there and sign all that away and not get any security from it. And that would have been the stupidest deal I've ever seen. And I give him credit. He stood up and I'm not doing that.
Yes.
And even if I have to walk away from here and just rely on Europe or whoever, because obviously it's clear who you rely on, then I'm not going to do it because you think that you're so powerful and you're going to make Putin do something. How can you make Putin do something when you give Putin everything that he wants? It makes no sense, and it's a low point. I don't know how we, as a country, recover from it other than electing him out in 4 years and getting somebody in there that has some daggone sense. But right now, you add this debacle to the debacle of firing everybody willy-nilly and then having to call them back and put them in because we didn't know what we were doing and all the other stuff that he's doing. I mean, this is a Holocaust. This is fire.
And you know what? We're not even 40 days into this administration. It's a dumpster fire. But you know what I do want to also say, The lies, the lies. So first of all, J.D. Vance started off with, "Did you thank us?" Zelensky started that meeting with "thank you," and he has come over to this country and said, "Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you." And so he's gonna say, "Well, you didn't say thank you enough." And then he told a lie about the propaganda tours. He's never even been to Ukraine. How does he know anything? And then to try to say you are wrong to not trust Putin. And what's so funny is you saw Marco Rubio sitting there. He was shrinking back into the couch.
He's the Secretary of State.
He's the Secretary of State, shrinking back into the couch. I saw a video while I was doing this research of Marco Rubio in 2022 saying Putin is not to be trusted. And Walls in 2023, I think it was, same thing. Putin is not to be trusted, and all about this war with Ukraine. Then J.D. Vance said, President Biden was in there for 4 years, blah, blah, blah. He wasn't. He got in 2021. Putin did this invasion in 2022. Biden wasn't there that whole time. And keep in mind, just like Zelensky said, in 2014, everybody sat on their hands and let Putin just take over. And even after they had the agreement with exchanging prisoners and having a ceasefire and all of that, Putin reneged on that. So if I were Zelensky, I wouldn't believe him. And then really, 80% of Americans do not trust Vladimir Putin. Why? Because he's a lying criminal dictator.
Well, that's very passionate.
Well, I was just looking to see if anybody said anything. Nobody said anything yet. I don't have anything else to. One more lie. Trump has been saying all week. He said it to Macron, then he said it to the UK Prime Minister that Ukraine has gotten $320 billion from America, and we gave more than anybody else, and that is also a lie. We have given about 120 billion, which is less than the Europeans have given. And they both the French and the UK guys said, oh, wait a minute, that's not true. And it's not a loan. We're not expecting them to pay us back. So why is Trump saying, you got to pay us back? We want all this money plus half of your minerals and half of your valuable resources. He's a crook.
Well, I just go back to the graphic on Micah 6:8, because the whole purpose of the Gap News is to give you some idea how to spread the gospel in our time. And so when you look at what's happening in that regard, in that Gap News report, God requires justice. I don't see any justice being applied toward Ukraine by lying and saying that they were the ones who caused the war, and no mercy, because their kids, children have been killed, and they're kidnapped and taken away, and their electric grid has been power grid has been basically almost destroyed. They're shooting missiles at the nuclear plant, and taking the country on this part, making a deal, lying, breaking that, and all that. That's not justice. That's not mercy. And when I see Trump walking in, and some of the things he's kind of leaked in the things he said, he thinks he is some type of God or something. And Micah says, walk humbly with your God. You don't get out in front. You're not God. He's God. So Micah 6:8 is being destroyed by Trump, or Micah 6:8 not, but what it's trying to portray is being. And so now you got the current events. Spread the gospel as well as you can, but remember one thing: God is still in control.
Sister Elaine did have something to say.
Okay.
I'm bringing it up right now. You're right. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. And this is just piling on. We were talking about this before. You know, you just keep piling on, you just keep piling on, keep piling on, and people are going to come to the streets. They're not going to keep taking this. And I mean, they already have. You saw, I mean, I thought, well, maybe I could do some of these town halls we had in the last week or two. Those were pretty exciting. But this one takes the cake. And the European Union is separating from America. And we're going to be left standing out on an island. You know, we think we're so strong and all of that. What makes us strong is our alliances.
All right, Gap News. Gap News. All right. It's keeping you informed, keeping you up on it.